Before we get stuck in, I'm just going to make it very clear from the off, I am absolutely not going to be smashing these with a hammer or driving over them with my car. Let's just say that I assume that the G-Shock will perform a little better than the Skmei when it comes to a rugged test. It's an assumption, but I think it's a fair assumption that we'd all expect. Anyway, let's just have a quick look at these two watches and have a look at where they are similar and where they are different, where they're exactly the same, etc. Let's just go through it. So first and foremost, let's just approach the obvious, the looks. Now, both these watches are pretty much the same size. I can tell you now, I've taken my calipers to them here, and all the dimensions that I have picked up on these watches are the same. The only one that is different is the Skmei is about 1 millimeter thicker. Now, I'm not going to take them apart to see why that is, but this watch is just a little bit thicker than this one. And I'm surprised at that, because I would have thought that the G-Shock may have been a little bit more robustly manufactured and a little bit thicker. However, that's the only physical difference in terms of the sizes that I've noted. The strap on the Skmei watch actually is a little softer than on this one, and I have other G-Shocks where the strap is even stiffer. So at the moment, the strap on here is a more comfortable to wear for longer periods of time. It's softer and more pliable. So yeah, big plus points for the manufacturer here. Whether the strap will last as long as the strap on this one, I don't know. Only time will tell. Some other differences are the buttons. You'll see here, all 4 buttons are visible on the Skmei watch. The G-Shock DW-5600, if I can hold that up squarer to the camera, these 3 are more visible than the adjust button up here. The adjust button typically is recessed on this watch, making it a little harder to accidentally adjust, and if I'm completely honest, harder to deliberately adjust as well. So that's a minus point for me. Now, the adjust button on the Skmei is actually down on the right hand side here, rather than up there, but that's by the by. It's just I guess a different PCB, but all 4 buttons are visible and easily accessible on the Skmei, whereas on the Casio G-Shock it's a little bit more recessed and harder to get at. As far as functions are concerned, both watches tell you the time. They have an alarm. The Skmei has a dual time mode, which frankly is not really much use and interest to me anyway. I like the world time functions on some of the world time watches, purely because it just means that the screen's a bit more interesting and you have a map and stuff. But other than that, I don't use a multi-time zone watch really in any way at all. So this one doesn't have dual time. So we'll go on to the next function, which is a timer. Both watches have timers, and let's just hit the timer on the Casio so you can hear what happens after 10 seconds, which is what I've got it set as. You'll also notice on the Casio that I've actually got this, seeing that little icon there on the screen. You'll also notice that this watch is capable of flashing when a timer comes to 0 or when alarm goes off. It's not really a practical function in my opinion, but it is something that the G-Shock does that the Skmei doesn't do. So let's just play. Let's just start the timer on this one as well. So you can see the little icon is flashing there, but it doesn't actually do anything on this watch. If somebody knows how to make this flash, then please let me know. What you'll notice is the alarm on this watch is actually, that was my phone. What you'll actually notice here is the alarm on this watch is actually a little bit louder than on the G-Shock, so that's a bit of a positive. Next function is stopwatch. I'm sure I don't need to explain to you how a stopwatch works, but both these have a stopwatch. And what you can see actually here on the Skmei, that it actually counts up here how many hours have gone by, which is a little different to how this one works. So I don't know why you would need it up there when there's clearly plenty of space on here for hours. Anyway, stopwatch, all those functions are the same. So if I sort of twist my arm a little bit, you might be able to see the light. So the backlight on the Skmei is quite a bright one. Some people don't like it. It can look a bit blown out at times, but it is really nice and bright. The one on the Casio is perfectly acceptable, but definitely not as bright as the Skmei. So I think that actually really covers it. I don't think there's really much to call between these two watches. The screen on the Skmei doesn't quite have the same amount of contrast, as you can see here, as the G-Shock. And other than that, I think functionally they both work for me. This watch I've actually had for quite a while, and I wear it quite regularly. Sounds a bit daft, but it's because I don't mind getting this one scratched and damaged, whereas I like to look after my G-Shocks. As I said at the beginning, I'm not about to smash one with a hammer or anything. Maybe I'll do that in a future video when this channel gets big enough and I can afford to write off a watch. But generally, what we got here is two watches that functionally are pretty similar. Visually look very similar. At a glance, someone's going to think I'm wearing a G-Shock here because it doesn't actually shout Skmei anywhere on the front of this face, and you can actually get Casios which have a sort of blacked out display and you won't actually see any of that branding. So this at a glance will look like a G-Shock. However, this can cost you less than £10, whereas this one will cost you no less than about £50. So should you buy one of these watches? Should you buy the Skmei 1628 rather than a Casio DW-5600, a G-Shock, one of the most iconic watches in the world? Well, it's entirely up to you. As I've said, at a glance, this looks just like one of those. So if you want to cheat yourself and cheat people, then by all means go out and spend £10 and get a watch that looks like it at a glance. If you've only got £10 to spend rather than £50 to spend, then maybe you should get one. Maybe it won't last as long. I don't know yet. I haven't had either of these watches long enough to know whether this is going to fail in a year or two's time just yet. Perhaps the branding is important to you, then obviously the Casio is key. And then the last question is perhaps more of a moral one. Do you want to be funding this company with your money, as the thousands and thousands of other people are, to enable them to continue to make watches that clearly they've ripped off from somewhere else? So it's a little bit of a moral dilemma, perhaps. Personally, I don't have any problem doing it. I've got 4 of these watches and 1 of these. So Casio have still had in the region of about £300 worth of my money, and Skmei have had a tenner. So has this stopped me buying G-Shocks? No, it hasn't. So yeah. Anyway, if you want to know some more about these watches, then please follow my channel. Ask me some questions below. I've got a few more videos coming on this watch in particular, and hopefully I'll see you in another video real soon. Cheers.